All right, let's go. All right.
Well, Dad, big news.
Yes, I guess it is
in
big
Leafland.
news. You know, I'm going to tell you what I think happened. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. First of all, they made an agreement before.
Right. According to Shanahan's press conference, that he said to Dubas after the trade deadline, I want you to come back. Dubas said, talk to my agent. He goes, I don't want to get in.
They agreed.
And then at the end, they agreed before they sat down and they had an arrangement and that they were going to announce it after the playoffs.
Then Shanahan said, I don't think he should go on television, and he says, no, it looks like I'm avoiding all the stuff that went on. So he went on, and while he was on, they'd already made an agreement that this is the part that I can't. By the way, he's making $4 million a year. $4 million.
That
was offered.
That was the offer. $4 million for 4 years.
Yeah, for 4 years. So they made the agreement and everything like that. And then he gets on and then he says he doesn't know whether he wants to come back or not. And then that's when Shannon said, I didn't know whether I wanted him back or not. And there was a lot of stuff going on after, and the agent phoned him, and it was different than what they agreed on and the whole thing. So what's your agreement, Tim?
I think that from when Shanahan's press conference, I thought that he had doubts in his mind. I think he got mad when Dubas said, I don't know if I want to come back, and it's tough on my family. And Shanahan kind of had an inkling.
So wait a minute, we've already made an agreement here.
And then when his agent called up and wanted to change the agreement, Shanahan said it was a rather short conversation.
F you.
Yeah, because F and you. And I think once that happened, that was it. So my question is, Dad, did Dubas just make a blunder, or do you think that he
I think if he had it to do over again, he wouldn't have said that.
Right. But do you think he was using his, I don't know if I'm coming back to try to get more money out of Shanahan?
No, I don't think so. I think he just did it.
He just screwed up.
I just think he screwed up.
Well, let me ask Dad, what if he got a better offer from another team, knew that if he said this and he ticked off Shanahan, Shanahan would say...
Yeah, but he'd already made the agreement. They probably shook hands. And once you do that in hockey, once you shake hands, you better live up.
Yeah, but that might be old school thinking.
Yeah, it might
tell
be.
us the situation that happened where you shook hands and kind of, you could have been a coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
All right.
Let's back up a little bit. You was the end of the Bruins, and you and Harry, and was Paul Mooney, and they offered you a contract, but they said you're management, Don. You're not a player. You got to stop talking to the press. You got to be management.
I was a player's coach, as they say.
So, Dad, let's go back a little bit. When you were actually offered a contract with the Bruins,
I was not fired. I was offered a contract. They said that you had to be more management and less player. And I said I can't. That's the way I coach. And
so you went to look for other.
I didn't look. They were.
You had Alan Eagleson as your agent.
Yeah, and Alan Eagleson was my agent. And you tell a story, Tim. It's a pretty good story.
So it came down to. I remember sitting at the kitchen, and it came down to Philadelphia and Colorado.
Yeah.
Right. And
Colorado was the worst team in the league.
And Philly was one of the better teams in the league. So
yeah, it was.
You kind of thought, well, if I go to Colorado, the GM's going to listen to me. Muron's going to listen to me.
You're going to listen to me a little.
In Philly, you there's a lot. There was
Bobby Clark was
there and all that. So you decided to go to Colorado. You build a team, and so you met. Armin Pohan was the son-in-law of the owner.
Yeah.
And Ray Muron, who was the GM. You said you met in Dallas and you shook hands.
We shook hands at
for the agreement, and you were going to be the highest paid coach at the time.
Yeah.
And Alan Eagleson calls, right? And what does he say?
Howard Ballard offered me $15,000 more a year, which is pretty good, and I could
longer term too,
and and 1 year longer, and I could visit my mother and the whole deal. And I said no. I said I can't do that. I shook hands with Ray Miron.
Eagleson said, shook hands. What is this, the effing Boy Scouts? He didn't sign anything.
He didn't sign anything. I said no, but I shook my hand. I shook his hand.
Well, then, but we're getting kind of off the topic here. You said that if you did go to Toronto, they had a good team.
No,
but you never would have got along with Ballard, and you never would have got on TV.
Because Ralph Mallaby liked me. Ralph Mallaby, he was the executive producer, and he liked me.
Remember, like Kenny Dryden called you up, and a long time ago, and you said, Ken, he goes, you were lucky. He says, in that overtime, you were looking to your left, and Donnie Marcotte just shot it, hit your shoulder.
And you were on your knees.
And he said, if he would have scored, we would have won the Stanley Cup. You know what he said? He goes, if you want. So you win the Stanley Cup. You just be another coach that won the Stanley Cup that nobody knows.
And he's right. And
so one thing to just get back to Dubas.
We're getting off subject here a little bit, but go ahead.
So let me ask you something, Cindy. Dubas said it was tough on his family. So did you find it tough, Dad, coaching the Bruins and Colorado and Rochester and playing?
Oh, please. You know what? I watched that conference, him talking, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just couldn't believe that he was really telling the truth, that it was taxing. The word was taxing on his family. No, you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. I mean, we never, you know what, Dad, especially with the money that he's making.
$4 million.
Did you ever ask Mom about, well, Rose, what do you think about this?
I never.
Well, no, you and Mom sat down and like when you were, do we go to Colorado? We go to Philly. I mean, Mom kind of leaned towards Philly for a while because she would have been closer to her. But then you just thought that there was too much.
We went through.
Yeah, too much stuff.
You know what? We were tough. We toughened up. I mean, if you want to make the big bucks and you want to be in the public eye, that's the price you pay.
Cindy, I remember Game 7 in Montreal, and we knew it was overtime. And if Montreal scored, we knew, you and Mom and I and Dad knew that we weren't going to be in Boston. We had just had the kidney transplant. We were comfortable with our doctors, but we knew if Montreal scored, that was it. We don't know where we're going, but we're not going here. In fact, when I was...
But I wasn't fired, Tim.
No, but you knew you weren't coming back.
I knew I wasn't coming back.
And I remember the teacher, after a couple of days later, he was passing out stuff about courses that you want to take next year at high school. He came to me, he goes, well, you won't be needing this.
Well, that's pretty good.
and then if you won, there's no way Harry, they might have got rid of Harry. If you would have won, you would have been won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
But,
this was the semifinals. We had New York. Whoever played New York, it was a piece of cake.
And Mom, I mean, it was like water off a duck's back with Mom.
Oh, yeah.
Mom was more nervous, and it was more stressful with you doing Coach's Corner than she was any hockey.
I've never watched the Coach's Corner. I should have watched the Coach's Corner to see if I was as bad. I must have said worse things. Ron and I used to.
Oh yeah, but times have changed.
Time to change. You've been on long enough for 40.
But Mom,
43 years I was there. 43 years. I talked to guys about 40 years old, and they said, I watched you since I was a kid. And I remember the first time the guy said it to me, I resented it. And then I got thinking, God, he's right.
I resent that when people, a woman my age, will say, I can remember watching, your dad on TV when I was just a little kid on his lap. And I'm going, wait a minute, let's just do the math.
I get that all the time.
Let's just do the math here. That's not true. You think anyway.
And then 43 years when you think of it.
So, okay, Dad, who do you think the Leafs should get for GM? Well, first of all, you told me one thing about Keefe.
If he's going to get rid of him, he should get rid of him now so he can get another job, because he'll get another job. But he should have had Simmons on the bench. I really believe that. And I think he was being told and he was listening, which was the greatest fault of any coach.
So, Dad, who do you think they should get for GM?
Well, I know who I'd get. I'd get that Dale Hunter. I'd get him in here. Boy, you'd win. You'd win with him, and he coached Tavares. And
Well, you get Mark, and then you bring Dale up as coach.
that's who I'd do.
I think they should. I think they should get Mark and Dale. I mean, the whole funny thing was.
And they always win. What was that story you told about the most overrated guy?
Oh yeah, and this is a story of Mark Hunter. I mean, you know, we like Mark, but during the Ice Dog days, we weren't his biggest fans, and they weren't.
No, I wasn't.
We kind of were battling with them. That we were in. It was a Wednesday night, and we were in Iceland's, and that's a freezing cold rink, and it was the two bottom teams that were playing, but Mark wanted to see this kid, and I forget his name, that he might draft 11th or 12th. You know what I mean?
And he was always out.
And he was always out. And he drafted the kid like 13th round, and the kid ended up making the team and has a chance to go to the NHL. So this was right after they had won the World Championship.
Yeah.
But the first game they got blown out by the Russians 6-0.
6-0. Do you remember that score?
So we said, "Oh, hey, congratulations!" And you know, Mark's kind of humble. Yeah. And he laughed. He says, "Remember the first game we got beat?" And we go, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Headlines in the paper: Mark and Dale Hunter, the most overrated minds in hockey."
And he laughed about it because he won, but I don't think he was laughing when that was put in the paper.
No. But I think he'd be great. But
anyhow, I would, and it will never happen. But I would hire Dale Hunter as the coach, and you'd win. Eventually, you would win, and Mark Hunter would be a great general manager. That would be and here it is. But you'd never tell those guys what to do.
No. The other guy, too, I think might be a good GM is Steve Stais.
Yeah.
With the Hamilton Bulldogs.
Yeah. I used to talk to him all the time.
Yeah, he was out quite a bit, built the Bulldogs, went to the Memorial Cup, and he's with Edmonton now.
And he had too many injuries.
Yeah, just injuries. But you know why, Cindy, I like him, that he was smart. You could tell he's got a brain. Is his son was a really good hockey player and eventually won OHL Defenseman of the Year. And he could have drafted him, but he knew if he drafted him, it'd be an awful pressure on the kid. So he let him go to, I think he went to Windsor. And because he just said, he goes, if he gets the power play or whatever, it's favoritism and it would be too much pressure. I'm sure Mom Stais didn't like that.
That's
but
right.
he knew he was smart enough to do that. And then eventually he got him later in a trade. But you look and you go, see, that shows he's got some smarts.
Well, he knows what's going on. And he worked his way up. He started in junior and worked his way up. So, yeah, he'd be a good one, too. Good general manager, too. But I would take Mark as the general manager because he was always out. It was always, there'd be two guys in the arena or three guys in the arena. It'd be you and I and Mark.
But here's a question, talk about families and all that. The Hunters have a great thing going in London. They probably are not hard up for money and everything.
No, I don't think so.
Why would they want to put their family through that? Is it more of a prestige thing?
Yes.
It's a prestige thing.
It's the National Hockey League, and when you play...
And it's Toronto.
Right.
And believe me, they would... And if they were offered it, they would take it.
I got to tell a funny story with Mark. One day we were out and it was, we were watching the game. And again, it was kind of two middle teams, so it wasn't a lot of guys in the stands. And I sat down and Mark was kind of standing and there wasn't a lot of seats, so he kind of sat next to me. And he looked at this one kid and he looked at the kid. He goes, have you seen that number 12 much? And I go, oh yeah. I said, he's pretty good. And he goes, yeah. He says, he looks like he could really skate. Oh yeah, he's a really good skater. And he says, he says, does he have any jam? He goes, I can't have guys without jam. I can't have guys gutless. I said, oh, no, he's got jam. I said, he chirps a lot. Oh, he goes, I like guys that chirp. Does he chirp? I said, watch, he'll chirp. Oh, okay. As long as he chirps and he's got jam, okay, so I'll mark him down. And then I remember one time a scout
Yeah, you go back to Dale, and if he doesn't chirp or if he doesn't,
Yeah. So one scout, I was London night scout. I was watching game, and this kid was really talented, but his dad would say yellow as a duck's foot, and he'd go in the corner and he'd jump out of the way and he wouldn't go in, and I go, so what do you think of number 9? He goes, no, what do I think of number 9? He says, if I recommend him and Dale hires him and he goes in the corner and bails out like that, he said, I'd be out of a job.
Well, anyhow, I would hire Dale as the coach, and I would hire Mark as the GM. And boy, you'd win.
Cindy and Dad, we'd like to thank spreads.ca. They're a Canadian-owned online casino and sportsbook. And if you sign
Now, that
up,
means a lot, Tim, that they're Canadian-owned.
yeah, that's for sure. If you sign up now and use the promo GRAPES, they'll match your deposit up to $500. You get 10 spins on the big wheel, and your first sports bet, they'll spot you $25. So
Sounds pretty good to me.
right,
And they're Canadian-owned.
that's right.
They are Canadian-owned.
Oh yeah, but yeah,
Oh.
not too many of them are. Everybody kind of says they are, but they're not.
So, Dad, poor Edmonton. I feel so sorry for their fans. And what about McDavid? He just must be
let me. Tim wrote a few things down. I'll read them here. McDavid ended up with 8 goals and 20 points. Draisaitl had 13 goals, and 18 points against Vegas in 6 games. McDavid and Draisaitl had 11 goals. The rest of 8 came from the rest of the team. Of course, they played most of the.
They didn't though. If you look, they only averaged 22 minutes a game.
Yeah, well, if I had them, they'd average about 30. I'd tell you that. Anyhow, McDavid and Draisaitl played it. Yeah, over 22 minutes a game. I can't believe that.
That was the thing. A little bit over 22 minutes a game. Like I thought, 30, 35 minutes. They wouldn't have got off the ice.
They wouldn't. Well, if I had them, they would never get off the ice. Stuart Skinner struggled against Vegas, pulled 3 times, save percentage 875, and goals against at 4. Something funny going on there. Campbell in relief had 957 saves, and goals against was 8-9.
Was less than 1.
There's something funny going on there. I don't understand that unless Campbell can't start. I don't know. But holy.
But if you pull a goalie 3 times, after the second time you think maybe I got to start.
Yeah.
Maybe I got to start the other one.
Yeah. I don't understand it. I would have played Campbell, but it's easy for me to say.
So, Dad, but you had that decision in '79 against Montreal and the Bruins. After the second game, you had to make that decision.
I went for a walk with Blue, and I remember the walk with Blue. I said, let's see, he's French. He's in Quebec, and he needs another contract. He will play his guts out.
Gilly Gilbert.
I'm not going to. He won 17 straight games.
He still holds a record. Most consecutive wins. Hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, and we had ties back then too.
Yeah, that was straight wins. No ties.
Anyhow, he got in and he was absolutely fantastic. We almost did it, and I can still see that goal just skipping along the ice in the far corner, and only Guy Lafleur, and Bobby Orr could have scored that goal.
Dad, shouldn't have you been talking to your GM instead of taking Blue for a walk? And
I know, but I knew I was gone, so it didn't make any difference. And I did. I put in Gilly Gilbert, and I didn't consult the general manager.
How did you know you were already gone at that stage?
No, I knew I was gone.
You guys weren't even talking. I mean, I think we told the story once before, but he's passed you a note that said, don't play Jean Rattel in Montreal because he's got... So what, instead of that helping, what did you do?
I give it to Bobby Schmatz. And Bobby Schmatz was a good friend with John Rattel. Showed John Rattel out, and he got a hat trick that night.
So you mean to tell me that if you had
nuts.
been... So you mean to tell me that if you had won against Montreal, which meant you would have gone on to beat the Rangers, that you think you still wouldn't have signed?
Oh, I would have signed.
Yeah,
They'd had to sign me.
Yeah, they would have.
But that game cost me the...
So, Dad, though, you talked about you got offered the contract by Boston.
I did.
But I remember, again, you and Mom sitting at the kitchen table. And what did you say to Mom that kind of convinced her that, okay, we got to move on and you're not going to sign the contract with Boston?
If he doesn't get me now, he'll get me later. And Harry would have got me later. And so I just moved on.
Yeah, if you guys weren't talking. And then when John Rattel scored that hat trick, Bobby Schmatz turned to you and said, wave to Harry.
Oh, fuck.
And
I had
Dad's
been
behind
nuts.
the bench, waving to Harry up on the boxes and
God.
pointing to John Rattel.
Yeah, God. I must have been nuts back in those
And I
days.
remember everybody going, gee, I don't know who on TV. For some reason, I was at home. I wasn't at that game. It was in Boston. And I remember Fred Cusick, Johnny Pearson. Don Cherry seems to be waving at somebody in the stands. I wonder if it's, his wife Rose.
Yeah, no.
Mom sat over there. Harry's sitting up in the
Well,
box.
even Mom and I asked, who's Dad waving to out
I
there?
know. Now, for you Canadians out there that want to cheer for a team, we'll go from. Well, Tim wrote this down, and I will read it. Dallas has 8 Canadians. Vegas has 16 Canadians. Florida has 13 Canadians. And Canadians, Hurricanes, have 4 Canadians. I know who I've cheered for.
Let me guess, Vegas. How do you think Cassidy feels? He coached Bruins last year. The Bruins set a record in the regular season for most wins, most points, blah, 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 out the first round. And now he's one game up in the semifinals.
I know who I'm cheering for.
Well, I'm cheering for Dallas with Max on there.
Right.
Oh.
I'm kind of rooting for Dallas because I like Pete DeBoer. And
Well, I'm cheering for Vegas.
should I tell that
because-
funny story about Pete DeBoer?
Oh, yeah.
So, well, first of all, this is the kind of guy Pete DeBoer is. He used to
He doesn't look at behind the bench. He's very quiet.
Yeah, he's got a funny sense of humor. But I'll tell you what kind of guy he is. Dad and Bobby Orr were doing the prospect game in Kitchener, and he was one of the coaches because he coached the Kitchener Rangers. And Dad and Bobby never got a jacket. Like everybody gets swag.
Yeah, that's true.
Like-
You know what? You never got any swag from that
Never
thing.
got anything, 'cause
because
they
I
give
was
'em all away.
looking and I was going to take it.
They had jackets and windbreakers
Oh, my
and hats
goodness, they had everything.
and sweat and pants and they had everything, right?
But Bobby always used to come in late all the time.
But you're sitting there, and I think Steve Spott, who is the assistant coach, he's been
and
assistant
he's the little guy that's beside DeBoer all the time.
And he was kind of going through his swag bag, and Dad goes, I've been doing this for how many years, and I never got a jacket. He's going on like that. You were saying it half jokingly, right?
I was just kidding.
Kidding?
I didn't want a jacket.
And the next day, a FedEx came, and Pete DeBoer sent Dad all his jackets and swags and everything.
that is really
that was
What'd
pretty
you do
nice.
with it all, Dad?
No, I don't know what I did with it. I'd probably give it away. But
Yeah.
tell a story about
Oh, yeah.
the guys.
So he told a funny story. We're having a few beers, and he's telling a funny story. So the Kitchener Rangers are kind of owned by the city. There's not one owner. They're kind of like a community owned. And in the old days in the Kitchener Rangers, in the old building, there was no glass between the fans and the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And the fans sat
Right behind,
right behind. There was,
And then they've been there for about 100 years.
so Steve or Pete was saying how it was all these season seat holders that are right behind the bench have been there for 100 years, right? And we put a power play on, we don't score. They go, well, I guess they're not practicing the power play enough. I wish they'd practice the power play, or somebody'd score a goal on a,
They get a penalty and they score against. Well,
I wish he'd practice the penalty killing more. I wouldn't have that guy. He goes, and I'm just steaming. But he says, I can't say anything. He says, I got to bite my tongue. And he says, every game we lose, all game, it was, well, you shouldn't have put that. I'd pull that goalie now. So, but he's a good guy. I'd like to see him. It would be nice to see him win a cup. But Vegas with 16 Canadians.
I still say Vegas. I'm cheering for Vegas because they got 16 Canadians.